Hey there, good morning. This is Pallas Dame, back again for day 4 of the Journey into Holistic Wellness Masterclass that I have been putting on this week, all about different elements of holistic living. I had talked about my journey into holistic health because of my health journey earlier this week and how I came to have the business that I have. Yesterday, we went over kind of what the course structure looks like that is coming up, this coming Monday. And then today, I was going to do a short coaching session with you guys all around relationships and frientimacy, most specifically, which is one of the modules that is in my course. And today, what I'm going to do is share one of the videos in that module with you guys so that we can watch that together. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then just predominantly, we'll be talking about what are the core elements that facilitate actual friendships and relationships in our lives, which is something that is seriously lacking. It has been for a very long time. Loneliness, friendships, true relationships that we're cultivating with abundance. But over these last several years, and especially this last year with everything that's been going on, being able to maintain and cultivate those relationships and friendships has become even more challenging. So for today, kind of where I'd like to start for this kind of short coaching lesson is about friendship intimacy, or frientimacy, which I can't claim coming up with the term frientimacy. That is from Shasta Nelson. And what frientimacy is, it is a relationship where both people feels, I cannot speak today. It's a relationship where both people feel seen in a safe and satisfying way. So right now, I'd ask you just to take a second to look at your life, to look at the people that are currently a part of your life, whether they're in person, whether they're remote, just the people that you surround yourself with. And on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being nothing, 5 being highest, where would you rate your current level of fulfillment with relationships? So just take a moment to think about that. Okay, so for the national average, with studies that have been done, most people will rate about a level 2 on their level of fulfillment on a scale of 1 to 5. If we're looking at a scale of 1 to 10, people on average are rating about a level of 5 or below. And what that says is that people are hungry for being close to one another. Absolutely close in physical proximity, but also close in our mental connections, in our vulnerability, in being able to truly share and show up and be us. Be who we truly are, right? And so, for many people, when we look around at the people that are in our lives, and there are going to be people that shouldn't be there for sure. But if we're looking at the people that we surround ourselves with in our social circles, online or in person, and we're feeling loneliness, oftentimes what we think we need to do is go out and meet more people, bring more people into our circles, more people to fill those gaps of loneliness, of feeling isolated, of feeling like we just don't have that connection with the right person. But truly, if we take a step back and look at the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, pending that they're not the negative people in our lives that we really need to determine if they should be in our lives or not. That, where we're lacking is that we have to learn how to develop better friendships and better relationships. It's a key skill that so many of us either we don't have or we don't exercise the muscles around that practice of building strong relationships with the people in our lives. So today I'm utilizing some information that I have learned from, or not learned, but that I'm sharing from Shasta Nelson, which is one of the videos that I am sharing in this module of this upcoming course about frientimacy. And she talks about 3 significant requirements of creating friendships. And with those three areas, there are two core kind of elements that are so necessary. And it's vulnerability of who we are and creating history together. When we create history together, it gives us opportunities over time to learn one another's patterns and learn how to love one another in meaningful ways for me and meaningful ways for the other person in my life. But in order to establish a history together, in order to bring the vulnerability of who we are and be able to just show up in the true form of what we are, it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a trifecta of areas that we each individually need to cultivate in order to really establish these relationship dynamics with the people in our lives and to move out of that lonely place and into a place of abundance. The first of those areas for creating true frientimacy is positivity. And with positivity, really what that means is that bringing joy into the relationship. Joy is something that we all want, we all need. We all want to cultivate joy and abundance in ourselves and with the people that we bring into our lives. It facilitates the hormones that improve what we are as a living being, but it also just improves our overall quality of life. And with positivity, bringing in rewards of dynamics such as acts of kindness for one another, positive affirmations, acts of service to one another, to our communities. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect or we have to be Mother Teresa in that way. We're human, and there's really important aspects of the positive and the challenges, right? But it has to do with making healthy deposits into one another's lives every day. And in listening to Shasta Nelson's talk, she talks about for developing and creating and curating the healthy relationships, we need to have at least 5 deposits of this positivity in one another's banks for us to stay healthy. And so the second leg of that trifecta of what do we really need to do to cultivate real, meaningful, beautiful, abundant friendships, relationships, and frientimacy is consistency. Consistency has to do with the history that we build together, our rituals together, allowing space and time to truly get to know one another. If we don't allow that space of conversation, of opportunities to connect, to hear one another and be seen by one another, we will never be able to create the consistency that is necessary to cultivate these meaningful, abundant relationships in our lives. Because developing trust and understanding with one another shows consistent behavior patterns of who we are and how we can learn to rely on that other person that we have allowed into our lives. In today's day and age, it's a bit tougher to develop those consistent patterns due to all the things that are going on in the world right now. Because in the past, it's been easier to develop this consistent behavior because we all, like as kids, we all went to school. And so we showed up at the same time. We went through our day of our classes, had lunch, did the stuff, and we knew what to expect every day of showing up with the people that we surrounded in our lives. And it created a culture for us to start really getting to know our peer group. Then also going to work is another way of establishing that consistency, and going to church, because people are creatures of habit and pattern. And those patterns, as we all know, in recent times have been challenged in order to do that. And so how do we go about creating those consistent patterns to connect with other people so that we can start learning one another's patterns and creating history together, right? I know that's like the biggest question for so many people right now. And there are true valuable ways that we can do that. But even looking externally to our homes, looking internally to the people that we do connect with and see on a daily basis in our homes, externally, who do we see on Zoom? How do we connect with the people, at our workplaces, whether we're in person or we're doing it remotely? It still comes back to consistency of time with those people and the ability to share, talk, communicate, hold space for one another, and be seen and heard across the board. So the third leg of that trifecta of what is necessary to build true, valuable, meaningful friendships, relationships with our partners, with our families, with our friends, it's vulnerability. So far for frientimacy, we've talked about positivity and consistency, and now we're talking about vulnerability. Because with vulnerability, it doesn't just mean that we're showing just the negative stuff. Vulnerability is where we share and we reveal who we are, not who we want people to perceive us as, the masks that we all wear. In developing and cultivating true relationships with other people, with our partners, with our children, with people that we want to bring into our lives as friends, if we can't start with a base of vulnerability of who we truly are and let people in and let ourselves be seen by them, then who are they actually getting to know? And vice versa for the people that we're trying to get to know as well, that we want to get to know and that we want to cultivate these dynamics with. It's sharing what's positive. It's sharing our histories. It's sharing our dreams and what we need. And as I said, it's not just about what is not going well. It's about who we are and what we're filling up our lives with. And so, kind of as I was saying at the beginning, we can know so many people, but still feel lonely. And it's not that we necessarily need to add more people into our lives. We need to take the time to cultivate the practice of friendship and relationships, work the muscles that we aren't actively working, to move those people in our lives that we want to bring closer up the ladders of the importance of where we're going to spend our time and our investment of our energy and our love and our caring. Because the more time we spend on whatever that thing is, most specifically right now talking about relationships and friendships, the more time we spend, the more time we have to get to know somebody and build a history with that individual. And this goes back to the umbrella of frientimacy with the core values of vulnerability, right? And building a history together, but with the trifecta of bringing positivity, consistency, and again, vulnerability into this pyramid of what is necessary to cultivate meaningful, abundant connections with other human beings. Our mental and physical health is so dependent on our positive connections with other humans. There are so many studies that are being done, that have been done, that indicate and prove premature death due to the lack of positive connections and positive relationships in our lives. That's huge. I've heard talks where they've talked about infants. And when an infant is born, if that infant is not given the opportunity to be held by the parents, to have that skin-to-skin connection, the exchange of energy, that if an infant is kept in isolation for I don't know the exact extended amount of time, but for extended periods of time, that infant's likelihood to die is very, very high due to the base fact of loneliness and lack of connection with other humans. That's a big deal. And so when we're talking about loneliness and not having the practice of cultivating abundant friendships and relationships in our lives, loneliness physically damages our bodies. For example, loneliness is the equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I don't smoke. I have been lonely. I don't smoke. I'm really worried what that looks like for me in the future. Loneliness is the equivalent to being an alcoholic. Take that in. Loneliness is more harmful than not exercising, and loneliness is twice as harmful as obesity. And again, I want to thank Shasta Nelson for these statistics and the video and the work that she's done that I've been following to be able to share a lot of this with you guys. But the bottom line about cultivating relationships and friendships, positive ones, not filler ones, not fake ones, is that how loved and supported that we feel in this life in the past, now, and in the future is a barometer of what our health is going to look like 20 years from now. So again, reflecting back on the people that you're allowing into your life, what they're bringing to you, what you're giving to them, are you guys exchanging positivity? Are you developing consistency of history, rituals, getting to know one another? Again, whether in person or whether remotely, we have to adapt. These things are still valid. And the third is vulnerability. Are you being vulnerable? Are you showing up to the table with who you really are? Or are you still hiding behind those masks of what you want people to think you are? Because you can't develop real meaningful dynamics or friendships, relationships that are abundant based on untruths. You just can't. Right? Loneliness is the number one health issue of our time. It has been the number one issue before COVID, over the last 5-10 years at least, the number one health issue. And that comes down to the fact that people are not practiced at developing positive relationships, positive ways to co-create, positive ways to communicate, build and solve problems together, because you can see that right now with everything that's going on in the world, the massive fractures that we have and the inability to connect. We aren't practiced at developing positive relationships. It's a muscle we have to work. Just like any skill and ability that we have, an Olympic athlete doesn't just show up to the table and win that mile relay having never run or gotten off the couch. It doesn't happen that way. So with relationships and friendimacy, these are things that we can develop through practice, through connection, through conscious awareness of ourselves, vulnerability to be you and those that you want to live your life with and allow into your life. And the thing that we all need to remember is that people make mistakes. I make a crap load of them. And I admit that. I'm not perfect. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But having tolerance to allowing those mistakes to happen and flexing those friendship muscles, the friendship building muscles of positivity, consistency, and vulnerability, and being open and honest and connected, you're able to work through these things together. But it's up to us to address these requirements that are necessary to create the relationships that fill us up with abundance. It's up to us to fill our connection needs up. It's not up to us to look outside of us for these people to bring it to us. It's up to us to create the reality, to create the friendships, to create the connections that we desire. When we heal ourselves, when we work on ourselves, when we transform ourselves, we impact those around us in positive ways as well. We got to do the work. It's so important. So again, positivity, consistency, vulnerability are the trifecta of necessary elements to build the beautiful connection, relationships, and dynamics that we all desire. So I'm going to wrap up here with sharing a video that that I think is really powerful that I utilize in this one particular module in this course that's coming up that I've been coaching around today. And it's called "This Video Will Make You Angry," but it's all about thought germs. So give me just a moment to share my screen. I'm going to share the audio, and I really hope that this comes through the right way. There we go. And so this is the video that is in this module about friendsmacy and relationships.
Hello, Internet. Thoughts compete for space in your brain. Cat photos, news stories, belief structures, funny gifs, educational videos, not so educational videos, and your thinking inventory is limited. A thought without a brain, to think it dies. Now, we can treat thoughts as though they're alive, specifically alive like germs. That might sound weird, but stick with me. Take jokes. Jokes are thought germs that live in your brain, and when you tell the joke to another brain, you help it to reproduce, just like when you have the flu and sneeze to help it reproduce. This germ gets into its host by snot through the mouth, and this one by words through the ear, but it's reproduction either way. Logging onto your social media then is exposing yourself to everyone's mental sneezes, each post a glob of snot with a thought germ trying to get into your brain. If not for permanent residence, then at least long enough to get you to press the share button and sneeze it with everyone you know. In this analogy then, a funny cat photo with the perfect caption is a superflu. Now, just as germs exploit weak points in your immune system, so do thought germs exploit weak points in your brain, aka emotions. Once inside, thought germs that press emotional buttons get their host to spread them more, measurably more. Well, except sadness. Sad thoughts don't get very far. Awe is pretty good, which is why websites that construct thought germs like biological weapons arm them with titles like 7 whatevers that will blow your mind or the shocking secret behind this thing. But anger is the ultimate edge for a thought germ. Anger bypasses your mental immune system and compels you to share it like nothing else. Being aware of your brain's weak spots is necessary for good mental health, like knowing how to wash your hands. Because even without intentional construction, any thought germ on the internet can, on its own, grow more infectious as it spreads. To talk about why, let's forget anger for a moment and go back to that cat photo. Every photo ever taken is a thought germ, and most die a quick death like the bazillion cat photos, or baby photos, posted on the internet that are never shared. But a mildly funny cat photo can grow into so much more, because just as transatlantic flights were the best thing to happen to germs, so the internet is the best thing to happen to thought germs. For once on board, that cat photo can leap into other brains, and those brains might share it, and here's the key point, occasionally change it. A Photoshop here, a tweaked caption there. Most changes are terrible, but some make the thought germ even funnier, getting more brains to share it, which results in more changes and a shot at superstardom. Thus, a lowly cat photo can achieve global brain domination, at least for a few hours. The internet, with its unparalleled ability to share and randomly change thought germs, can't help but make them stronger. With jokes, that's awesome, but with angry germs, not always so awesome, no. Angry germs, the more they're shared, undergo the same process, changing and distorting to be more aggravating. These have a better chance of spreading than their possibly more accurate, but probably also more boring rivals. But like plagues, thought germs can burn through a population too quickly. Just watch your favorite meme-generating machine for a week and you'll see the life cycle fly by. However, some thought germs have found a way around burnout. Now, I must warn you, depending on which thought germs live in your head and which you fight for, the next section might sound horrifying. So please keep in mind, we're talking about what makes some thought germs successful, particularly angry ones, and not how good or how bad the thoughts themselves are. Deep breath, calm. Thought germs can burn out because once everyone agrees, it's hard to keep talking and thus thinking about them. But if there's an opposing thought germ and argument, then the thinking never has to stop. The disagreement doesn't have to be angry, but again, angry helps. The more visible an argument gets, the more bystanders it draws in, which makes it more visible, which is why every group from the most innocuous internet forum to the national conversation can turn into a double rage storm across the sky in no time. Wait, these thought germs aren't competing, they're cooperating. Working together, they reach more brains and hold their thoughts longer than they could alone. Thought germs on opposite sides of an argument can be symbiotic. One tool symbiotic anger germs in particular can employ is you're with us or against us. Whatever thought germs is left to the front of your brain, push it back. This video isn't about that. We're just talking about this tool, which makes it very hard for neutral brains to resist, and its divisiveness also grows its symbiotic partner. This explains why in some arguments gaining more allies also gains more enemies, because though the participants think they're involved in a fiery battle to the death, from the anger germ's perspective, one side is a field of flowers and the other a flock of butterflies. Of course, planting more flowers will get you more butterflies, and getting more butterflies will pollinate more flowers. If there is some argument that splits the population and lasts forever, and that even the most neutral people find difficult to avoid, you just might be looking at a super successful pair of symbiotic anger germs that have reached ecological stability. Now, one final depressing thought. One more awe-inspiring point that will reveal the secrets of actually, no, it's just depressing. When opposing groups get big, they don't really argue with each other. They mostly argue with themselves about how angry the other group makes them. We can actually graph fights on the internet to see this in action. Each becomes its own quasi-isolated internet sharing thoughts about the other. You see where this is going, right? Each group breeds thought germs about the other, and as before, the most enraging, but not necessarily the most accurate, spread the fastest. The group almost can't help but construct a totem of the other so enraging they'll talk about it all the time, which, now that you know how thought germs grow, is exactly what makes the totem always perfectly maddening. Now, all this isn't to say there's no point in arguing. That's a different video. Or that the internet isn't amazing, or that there aren't things worth trying to change people's minds about. Thought germs of all kinds come and go. But it's useful to be aware of how thoughts can use our emotions to spread, and how the more rapidly a thought is able to spread, the more chances it has to become even better at spreading through random changes that are made to it. Sometimes that's great, sometimes it's terrible. But if you want to maintain a healthy brain, it pays to be cautious of thoughts that have passed through a lot of other brains and that poke you where you're weakest. It's your brain. Be hygienic with it.
So let's see here, just one moment. So that is just one of the videos that I like to share when we're talking about relationships and how we're impacting one another, and how we might be able to reframe how we show up in life with one another, and how are we actually working on building those muscles that are necessary to create those friendships of abundance that we're looking for, so that we can move out of place of loneliness and into a place of connection. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today for this masterclass on working with negative relationships and relationships in general and friendimacy. If you guys would like to go deeper with all of this with me, I have my series is coming up for Journey into Holistic Health this coming Monday. And the focus is on relationships and goals. It's an 8-week course where you get one module per week and one coaching session with me per week as a group. And we're going to be going deep in how we show up in life, who we are, and how are we creating abundance with the dynamics of relationships and friendships and our goals together. So thank you guys so much for being here today. If you want to find me before then, you can find me at pallasdame.com, PALLASDAME.com. That's my website. You can also connect with me inside of the Conscious Leadership Network, which is community.consciousleadershipnetwork.org. And anything else, just like, share my video, connect with me in a couple days about my upcoming course, and I would love to see you in there. It's going to be really fantastic, and it's just the first of a 5-part series that's going to be running throughout the entire year, all about holistic health and what holistic health truly means to us. All right, thanks, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for taking the time that you spent with me today.